Welcome to the podcast session of Tech Pro. Today we are going to present podcast on Team Scoop. I am Saleh, along with my teammates Nikhila, Rumana, Ankita, and Jayshree. Would like to give out some exclusive scoops on how we worked as a team while working on a mobile app. And we also have some inputs from the experienced people, so make sure you listen all the way through. As it's rightly said by Rosalind Carter, a leader takes people where they want to go, but a great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go but ought to be. So, Nikhila, our team coordinator, can you give us some insight on how we as a team started with exploring the options of coming to an idea for the mobile app?
Thank you, Swale. Actually, at first, we were totally blank about how to come up with a new idea for the mobile app, as there are so many already in the market. With a tight deadline and so much pressure to come up with unique idea, we started off with brainstorming with whatever concept we had in mind. Since everyone is from different backgrounds, I must say it was really tough to decide on one as all the concepts were really good. According to my opinion, I thought we should go with something related to lux level calculation. I know it sounds quite technical, but it's useful to the architects and designers. I remember the expression from Ankita. She was like, what do we need to do with the intensity of the lights? It doesn't matter to me and all. And according to her, she was okay with every intensity of light.
So true. That's exactly what my reaction was. Because literally, as far as the lightning is good for me to do my activities, I'm okay with it. Later, with so much discussion, we finalized the idea for the mobile app, which is helpful for the working parents. I was so excited to take it practically as being a working mother. I'm always quite worried about my kids' activity and health and security. And I'm so grateful that we all were on the same page, even though Rumana was like, I don't want to be around mothers all the time.
Yeah, I did feel that. I won't deny it. It's not that I don't like kids, but it is actually the fact that every conversation around mothers revolve around kids. But later on, I did agree with them to build something that is really useful to keep an eye on the kids. And I do feel that in future I might need that app for tracking my kids' activities too. I was being picky not just with the idea, but I was even more selective for deciding with the name of the project. Everyone suggested so many good names, but I always felt like something was missing. Either it is not suitable, or it's quite common, or it's already available in the market. But because of my fuzziness, Nikhila and Saleh even came up with names in different languages, as in French and Chinese. But yeah, with everyone's input, we did come up with the nice name Kid's Nest.
I do agree with that. Romana was being so demanding with the selection of names, so I had to start looking for synonyms in different languages. Also, being an implementer, I took initiative to help the team with technical stuff like creating Gantt chart for our work progress or dividing the budget into different costs. Romana, having a work experience in project management, guided me with the other aspects of planning a project. She was so supportive in explaining us the concepts of agile management as well as sharing her knowledge of Jira to create work plan which made it easy for us to understand about agile management in depth. Not only Romana, but everyone else has their own experience and all were happy to share their experiences with us, which helped us to learn more about the teamwork. Nikhila, Rumana, and Ankita were quite experienced in the professional world. It was just me and Jayshree who were novice with working in a team.
Yes, that's true. I'm not from the business sector, as I have a pharma background, so I was not familiar about the business concepts. But I did have some interest in this sector, as I have some friends from the management team in education industry. And from them, I tried to learn some skills like analyzing problems and evaluating ideas. With the help of this knowledge, I was able to use those skills within our team. As a monitor evaluator, My main responsibility was to evaluate the feasibility and practical value of the ideas as well as taking the suggestions from all the team members. Besides this, I really enjoyed working with our team and learned a lot from each member as everyone has varied experience. I was able to understand much about the leadership skills from Nikhila as she has some experience in business. And she also shared some kind words from Mr. Levi Crombie, who served British Army for more than a decade. And currently he is working as a head of task force, who is helped us a lot to understand how to work as a team.
So what makes good teamwork? I would say, as an example, in a team of four, each person in that team of four would need to have a sound knowledge of the task or the job that you are doing. By having four sound, knowledge individuals, then you then create a good team. But that doesn't create good teamwork. You then have to work together and find out the strengths and weaknesses of each team member, therefore creating the perfect or a good team.
I actually have learned a lot while working as a team leader in the design industry. It taught me how to be efficient as a team leader by handling work pressure and completing the task before the target date. I specifically remember how Mr. John Maxwell, a famous business executive, gave a glance about the main aspects to be a successful team leader. According to him, there are like 5 aspects: position, permission, production, people development, and pinnacle. With my previous experience as a team leader working with one of the most experienced project managers, I was able to learn necessary skills like problem solving, organization skills, time management, leadership skills, interpersonal communication, and even critical thinking, which was quite useful to us while working as a team. I was able to share this knowledge with my teammates, and with help of Rumana, we were able to take initiative in completing the needed task as well. What do you think, Rumana, about the experience I shared with you all?
Yeah, Nikhila, I absolutely agree with you. Actually, the details you shared with us were quite helpful and it made us realize the importance of working on that line. Having myself an experience of business analysis of more than 8 years, I understood the meaning of planning before we start any project. And I must say, all of them were so much curious to learn in depth knowledge about the process and implementing it into our project. They really understood the meaning of kickoff meeting, and with that, we started with the first phase of defining the features and vision of the project. Not only this, I do have some exposures with the budget, planning, risk management, and resource management, and I used that experience to first divide the work among us, and everyone took their responsibility to work on their respective task with equal enthusiasm. Since Ankita and Nikhila were much concerned about their kids, Ankita was our specialist to list down the features and she did some research on activities which will be needed to include in the app.
Yes, at first it was kind of difficult to bring everyone on the same page, but I did some research on the features and everyone has to convince with the idea. I did learn some new things while working on the team like patience, powerful communication, and how to motivate them. There were times when team were feeling low as we didn't have much knowledge about working on a project or preparing a podcast. So we sometimes went out for the lunch or maybe coffee for refreshment so we can try to know each other. Because if we know each other very well, then it's easy to understand their perspective. I remember how everyone was worried about making a podcast at first since no one has worked before. But Jayshree was much confident at it and she did encourage us. It's not a big deal.
Not at all. I was quite worried at first as I too have never worked on podcast before. But then I realized that if we all work together and do some research, it's an easy target to achieve. And that was the reason I was encouraging everyone that we can do it. Since our class timings were not sufficient to finish our podcast, we met at different places, such as cafes or library, to discuss our podcast script whenever it was possible for everyone to meet. It was a long process as we had to go through so many podcasts to understand how it goes. We tried to think of different ideas to implement in the podcast, and we are able to slowly understand the concept behind the podcast. We did face some difficulties in gathering everyone as all have different job timings as well as the model classes at different times. But despite their busy schedules, everyone still took out time to meet in their own availability, either in a group of 2 or 3 people.
I totally agree with Jayshree. Everyone did their best to take out the time to work on a different aspects of project. We researched different type of app for podcast and did some trial recording as well to understand the editing effects of some music and guest audio. We were not satisfied with the end result, but still we presented that podcast in the class so that we can get some feedback from the class as well as tutor.
Yeah, I think the feedback from the class was quite useful to us. We were able to improve ourselves a lot in producing the podcast, like editing of music, the major audio issue, because earlier each of the team members did the recording from different locations, and that resulted in minor sound quality issues for each of the dialogues. We also did some changes to the time allotted for the guest speaker as well. But I think overall we were quite excited about our first presentation as we were the only group who presented the podcast recording in class.
Yay! I can't contain my excitement, but it was so good to know that everyone in the class appreciated our effort for creating the recording in such a short period of time to present it in the class. And we got critical feedbacks from our classmates. We also tried to answer their queries with a positive attitude. Overall, by presenting the podcast in the class, it was a great help for us to understand what all are needed to be improvised for our final podcast.
We think that our podcast preparations was a huge success, but we started focusing on other parts of the project as well. As per the work divided by Rumana, I had to define the final objectives and the list of the features for the mobile app along with Ankita. For that, I just used my own experience and checked some features of the existing applications in the market. After having brief review about it with the team, I started looking at the RSCI matrices and in a stakeholder analysis. Later, me, Rumana, and Ankita also suggested different ideas to create a logo for our mobile app. Everyone was occupied with one task or the another, and we were utilizing our seminar time as well as the break time to create the required documents for the report. Also, Jayshree and Ankita were looking at the risk management and contingency plans for all the possible risks that we might face.
There were many risks we thought upon, but in the beginning itself, we faced a lot of troubles while creating the podcast, especially the software, because they were not working as expected. And we had to do a lot of research to look for the perfect software which would fulfill all our expectations. We faced a lot of technical issues with the software as we were not so professional in editing, but still we took an effort to learn it together and took it forward successfully to create a final recording.
Everyone was sharing all the possible ideas to create the podcast as well generating ideas for the mobile app. I don't remember whether it was Saleh or Nikhila. They suggested that we should invite a guest on the podcast. It will be quite helpful to share the knowledge from someone who has more experience on working as a team.
No, it was not me. I believe it was Ankita who suggested that we should invite a guest, and we all agreed to it, as it would be a really nice exposure for us to gain some knowledge from the people who have learned so much in their career. So, without wasting much time, Nikhila, why don't you introduce our guest speaker and take it forward from here?
Thank you, Swale. As a resource investigator, I always believed learning from each other is very important. So I always try to reach out experienced people to learn and discuss about teamwork and how to be a successful project manager. As a part of my research, we met Dr. Francis Frimpong, our lecturer from the Department of Strategy and Leadership, who holds a PhD in economics, and we are so pleased to welcome him now. He is here to share some of his experience and knowledge with us. Dr. Francis, thank you for joining us.
Okay, so to have a good team, it depends. For example, in education, when we are putting students together, we put students with different abilities so that they can learn from each other. But it's not wrong to put students of the same ability as well, especially if you want to move them to the next level. Yeah. So the size of a team is also very, very important. Like too large numbers will not be effective, and again, too little will also not be effective. So having a good team, you need to know the right size, and the right size will depend. It depends on, the context. If it's a business, it depends, and if it's like education, also depends. But normally, I think is it 5 to 7 thereabout seems to be a good team, especially for education purposes, so that each and every one will get the opportunity to say something. Okay, so to motivate a team, first you need to value each team member's opinion. So whatever they say should be respected. And again, to motivate a team, you need to make sure each team member also has a responsibility. Because sometimes when you form a team, some people, we get into a team and then they sit back. Then those people wouldn't be motivated. So it's always good to apportion responsibility. So you'll be the timekeeper, you'll be doing this, make sure each team member has got something to do, and this motivate team members as well. And in addition to that, as I said, you need to value whatever each team member brings as well. And again, from time to time, if someone is not engaged, we need to ask the person question, what do you think about this? So that the person also be involved. And when people feel that they are involved in like a team, then they all feel happy. And it helps everyone to produce well as well.
Thank you, Dr. Francis, for sharing your valuable time, experience, and knowledge with us. Now, that brings us to the end of the episode. Do let us know if there are any suggestions or feedback, and our team would get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Signing off, Team Scoop.